So, as I mentioned, Brittany, you've done it seems like you've run every bit of the film gambit from superhero movies to rom-coms to the ads. So, do you find that it's easiest to live in this world of make-believe of where there's no rules of the superhero genre and you kind of get to be free, or the very in reality, this is life, here we are? Do you find one is easier or one is more fun for you?
Absolutely. I find that being in the real world and these real moments are actually so much more rewarding and way more creatively challenging than superhero stuff, actually, believe it or not. Yeah, there's not as much creative freedom as people would think on certain superhero films. You really have to use so much collaborations involved and similar to obviously a romantic drama based on a book, but kind of dealing with something or sincerely dealing with something that's more in the real world is where I love to live.
That's so interesting. And do you feel like because you've worked on Marvel and then Colleen Hoover herself is such a huge name in literary fiction. Do you feel like a little bit of a stress when you first start of like millions of people have consumed this content before I have even stepped foot here?
Oh,
Like
100%. Yeah. Well, so it's interesting with Regretting You. It's actually my first dive into production designing for a feature. So I've done a handful of campaigns that I'm sure many people have seen as far as commercials go. But I was an art director for 12, almost 15 years on these really tentpole, huge superhero movies and beyond, just huge budget movies. And so diving into a more modest budget or more honestly just normal like a normal size movie as a designer in some in words that so many people know in a
Mhm.
book that so many people are in love with that are absolutely take that as a part of their psyche almost, it's a huge responsibility, and kind of creating this three-dimensional world around that is a huge honor, but it again is a responsibility that I take very seriously.
Yeah. Is your copy of Regretting You just like spine broken, post-it
Oh,
notes everywhere?
I should have brought it up. Thank you, Tina. Yes, it is. Well, now it is bedazzled because it's been my fun little new hobby. But yes, it has notes all inside of it, and there's highlighted little things here and there. But again, the script material is what I do base most of my design off of for the most part. But with that said, I love reading. I'm a feral reader. So there is, again, this huge responsibility of bringing this tangible three-dimensional world to life
Mhm.
that is outside of the book, that
Mhm.
is also draped in the script. So you have to, I read the script first, thank God,
Mhm.
before reading the book. And so I had this already, this idea and this dynamic of these characters and the relationships, which really made me want to do the movie,
Mhm.
aside from it being an adaptation and me like really wanting to do an adaptation. I hadn't done one when I was an assistant art director. I did Where'd You Go Bernadette, actually in
Mhm.
Pittsburgh, but I loved every minute of it. It was my favorite project I've ever worked on, believe it or not. And now being able to do something in a contemporary standpoint too, based on another book, and also a film that means a lot to female audience
Mhm.
members. I really wanted to do something like that. Um, so it I read the book right after, immediately after I got the script. I like fairly read it like one night. I was like and like highlighting everything. And then from my initial design standpoint off of reading the book after the script so closely
Mhm.
is all based on feeling and kind of how I felt, because the script was, it did keep true to a lot of the aspects in the book, but there are changes due to, location changes
Mhm.
and where we're going to shoot it and things of that nature. But the feeling in general of what I felt when reading the book is really what I wanted to portray into a visual, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And like one of the main parts of the film is the household of Clara and Morgan. And
Yes.
I'm curious how much of the look of that house and the layout of that house was that a real house that you then outfitted? Was it a set? How much of that came from the script or the book? And then how much like freedom did you have to create? I'm thinking about that door that she hates. And like
Yes.
I'm thinking about the little things that just feel so essential, but where did they come from?
Yes. So the Grant house in general is by far the biggest, tentpole in this movie for us,
Mhm.
where so much of the movie takes place. And there's so much in the movie, not necessarily in the book, that changes over time.
Mhm.
So in the book, though, you do get these senses of traditionalism and almost slightly claustrophobic of that in
Mhm.
Morgan's standpoint, where it's this claustrophobic traditionalism that's kind of her world of which she didn't necessarily choose, more or less. She's kind of just like, I'm going to accept this reality. This is where I am. This is who I am. And she's living in another person's home. She's moved in with Chris's parents. And then they kind of inherited the house essentially from them as a backstory of that. And she's stuck with more or less, this beautiful surrounding of a mid-century modern home,
Mhm.
in our story, but she has all these quirks and the squeaking door, which is very prominent in the book as well. And I think that was probably an inspiration in our script for Morgan to actually find a bit of an identity or a passion from
Mhm.
something. Whereas in the book, we don't really get as much depth in a passion way from Morgan, whereas in the script we do. So it was this really, really unique opportunity for me to play with a character who wanted to get into interior design and who had this passion for design. And so I was like, oh, well, this is just like me. Like there was a kinship to it, but it, the design was based on a location set. So the
Mhm.
set itself was chosen by Josh, our director, and he had it right in his mind. He was like, I love this house. This is the house I want to use. Even before I was on board, he was like, this is the house I love. You can do whatever you want to the interior, but I really want to shoot here. And I was like, oh, we're shooting on location,
Mhm.
the whole thing. I was like, the whole house that we're shooting in for almost a month. That seems like a lot. And there was a lot of conversation about building this interior
Mhm.
throughout prep, which would have been so much easier, honestly. But sometimes when it's a challenge on location, it actually breeds more creativity, in my opinion, because you are more or less stuck within certain confines of
Mhm.
what you have to work with. And it was very cozy in there. But aside, like the only reason too that Josh more or less really, really wanted to do it, because we essentially gutted the whole house. Um,
Wow.
but the only reason he really wanted it was on this lake location that is gorgeous, and it creates so much value to the design, and just kind of that comfortability that I hope audiences feel when watching the movie too. And it
Mhm.
was really important for Josh to have that because so many of his other movies have been set on water. And so I love that sentiment. And he was very specific about something like that. And I said, okay, great. Well, can we just take plate shots and then we can just wrap, the stage set in blue and call it a day, especially because we're renovating this house 3 times
Mhm.
on location. And, of course it was just like nope, we're going to do it here. And I'm like, okay, all right, hey, I'm up for a challenge. This is wow. So my construction team took that house down to the studs. That whole kitchen, I blew out a pretty big wall from the dining room into the kitchen or the living room area.
Yeah.
We took out all the trim in the house, every door. We put flooring on top of flooring. And we also had to do that with the understanding of obviously the logistics of something like that,
Mhm.
but the wear and tear on something, because obviously we build sets that are not permanent, but and we're in a home environment that we would, have to put back eventually, but that's production rule. But it was more of it to have camera and crew in that location for 3 to almost 4 weeks. We didn't just need material that would just look good, look like beautiful wood tones, and look like terrazzo flooring. We actually needed some specificity and some actual tangible elements of that, or else it would just all fall apart after the spring in Atlanta of just rain and wind and everything else. So my art director named Carla Martinez, who's also one of my best friends in the world, she worked on Thunderbolts with me, and then we came up together back in the day on like Pitch Perfect 3, things like that. So we've just kind of come up together and we relished the challenge. We're like, okay, we can break through XYZ walls, and remediation and abatement was absolutely necessary because it's an original 1972 ranch style home on water. So that was such a unique, fun challenge. But aside from that, not only did I want to take it down to the studs for the most part because the homeowner who owned the home, she had done some light renovation on her own, back in the 90s, it seemed like. So we had these white doors that are just kind of standard, and we had like faux marble on the floors and things of that nature, which was perfect for this homeowner,
Mhm.
But in our world and in our story, I wanted this house to again breed that traditionalism, but also I wanted it to feel so warm and cozy,
Mhm.
specifically at the beginning of the movie and the Grant house within itself, because I wanted this natural feel of it. I took so much inspiration from the lake and the colors outside of that house, and I brought it way back in. So I brought in all of these traditional elements of mid-century modern design and
Mhm.
terrazzo floor and the wood paneling and some of those really distinct warm aspects of that time that people love and are very precious about.
Mhm.
So I wanted to bring that back into a home that had maybe lost its touch there because why not? Over time, if you've lived there for so long, people kind of tend to move. But so in doing that, we then had this kitchen that needed to be completely usable and practical. And so we had to use, for the most part, some of the existing gas lines and the existing, electricity and things of that nature for the fridge to work and stay on, for the water to work in the sink, and for everything to work in this house that we had just abated and remediated and
I
built new
can't
walls.
fathom this. This is baffling. My dad's been working on like a renovation in his house for like years, and you guys are doing it in what, six? You're ripping it
Oh,
down, building it back, and
six
ripping it
weeks,
down. Two
6 weeks,
months?
6 weeks.
Wow.
I think I fought hard enough. So we did get maybe that 8, but I think it was really closer with the remediation and the abatement involved in it. We had 6 weeks in total to do it.
It's so
Um,
impressive.
and the first set that we actually did in that location, once we took it down to the stud, was the renovated set.
Mm-hmm.
So it's what you see at the end of the movie, which is a complete contrast to what it was at the beginning of the movie. So we took it to this very clean and light version of this, this kind of, I wanted this to be Morgan's passion, of course,
Mm-hmm.
but I also wanted this to kind of show this levity at the end of the movie. I wanted this breeding ground of mid-century feminine, which
Mm-hmm.
we don't see very often.
Mm-hmm.
I think we always just kind of equate it with very masculine,
Mm-hmm.
hence the wood tones and those colors. But I really wanted to play with this lime wash plaster that was this scenic technique on the wall that we used. And we had this rich rosy pink in the living room, which is kind of hard to see more or less in the film, but it's there and in images. And then in the kitchen, we had this lighter wood tone and this really nice just fluidity to the whole thing. And I wanted not so much as a compare and contrast to the beginning of the film and how the movie looks at the beginning, but I really wanted the audience to kind of like take a deep breath with Morgan at the end, when they get to that end scene, they're just like, oh, wow, she did it. Like she did that fast and she did it and it's her
Yeah.
and it's independent and it kind of flows with this new chapter a bit, in a
Yeah.
cliche way, but also it's perfect.
Yeah. Well, I think what's so impressive about it is that you make the first house that we see homey and the viewers like, oh, I want to live there. And then you get to the end and it's the same feeling again, but like two very different ends of the spectrum. And I think that because both times I was like, man, I could move in tomorrow.
Thank you. It was a really, really fun and unique. I actually wrote down some of the words that I had kind of that were literally just going in my head about the whole thing. So the end themes were definitely levity, femininity, and liberation. Whereas the Grant house at the beginning, which we then changed over
Mm-hmm.
within a weekend, this is the
It's
best part.
crazy.
It's the best part too, because it's like we started with the renovated look. And
Mm-hmm.
then from there, we broke it down to the transition look, which is
Mm-hmm.
in the middle, where that birthday dinner is for Clara. and we Josh called it the birthday dinner from hell.
Yeah.
And so, the birthday
Pretty
dinner from
terrible.
hell, yes, was at the same time in the midst of the house looking like hell. There's
Mhm.
just the kitchen cabinets are gone, and you just kind of see patches of paint on the walls, and you can get this sense of claustrophobic chaos a bit, but you're also kind of like, what's going to come of this?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that was the next weekend after we shot the promposal and then the renovated look. We literally came back like 4 days, 3 days later, and it was the transition look. And we shot that for like 2 days. And then we had one long weekend, which was Easter weekend. And we had 3 days, and then we changed the house over again to the before look. And it was really funny watching the shooting crew come in, and they're just like, this is different. Like, what happened here? Like, how did this happen? So,
Yeah.
and especially being on location, whereas on stage it would have had this. It would have been too easy. We would have just flipped the walls around. We would have just castered out, the whole island section, and it would have just been, bada bing, bada boom. But on
Yeah.
location, it was this insanely unique challenge of dealing with obviously rain and elements as well
Mhm.
outside because it was the spring. But also, it was not the easiest location to get to, too. It was a bit out
Mhm.
of the way. Um, but it was quite a unique challenge on location. But I relished in it. I love a challenge like that.
I was
Even
gonna
though,
say, I
again,
see why you like this more than superhero movies. Like, I understand.
yes, exactly. And again, it would have just been too easy on stage. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
the creativity would have flowed even more, but at the same time, when you're kind of encapsulated on this
Mhm.
lake, it brought all of this to the head for me. I was like,
Mhm.
okay, we need warm wood tones, we need creams. I was like, I want terrazzo. I was like, I want to bring this back to what it was and what it could have been. And so that's what we did in the before look as well. So that were the themes I kind of wanted to go with were togetherness, warmth, and comfort in a way. So
Yeah.
those were like my main elements of the two drastic looks of the house.
Yeah. I've got two more questions if you still have time. I don't want okay. Um, First question, the piece of art that she hates. I
Yes.
think it's such an interesting thing to have to create something that is meant to be ugly to one person, but meant to have sentimental value to other characters. So how do you make something that is ugly and know when it is ugly enough to be like, but feasible that someone would buy it? I'm just very curious about that.
I know. So it's funny. I thought mostly about Jenny and her character when going through multiple different options of something like this for inspiration. And I
Mhm.
put packets together for Josh, and I was like, "What do you think about this one?" He's like, "It's not ugly enough. It's like it's not weird enough." And so I was like, "Okay, we'll circle the ones that are close enough." He's like, "No, they're just not there yet." And so I just kept kind of diving into who Jenny was a bit, and because not Chris per se, this was all about Jenny on some level deeply. And she's this, erratic, eccentric, blonde who just kind of comes in and she's like, oh, I'll take a beer or I'll just have a shot or whatever. And so I was like, it has to kind of live in this erratic weirdness, like this chaos of erraticness that makes no sense with Morgan at all and makes no sense in the Grant house. So it really was just me kind of, and you get snippets of that. Willa plays that character so well
Mhm.
when she's icing that cake, and she's doing these things that are just off the cuff and not appropriate sometimes. And that's what I wanted that painting to feel like. I wanted it to feel like this eyesore because it's
Mhm.
also in the book, I think. So it's like it actually no, it's in the script, I believe. But um I remember reading that, and it was in my first designs that I did over the weekend to present. Once I really, really, really wanted this job, I spent the whole weekend on my computer 3D modeling the house and like throwing that in there, and it really sold it, I think. So that's really what it was. I went down to character fully. And I was like, hey, what would Jenny find absolutely classy and like so perfect for Chris? And what would Morgan just be like, this makes no sense?
Yeah. That's great. And my last question, it comes the two teen characters. We haven't talked about them, but Clara
Yeah.
and Miller. I think what makes a production design feel lived in is when you go to the teen bedrooms. And if it looks like a Pottery Barn was just like picked up and placed there, then you're like, I don't know who these characters are. But Clara and Miller's rooms both just feel like that's where they've lived for 17 years of their lives. So can you talk a little bit about those, like how you make a teen bedroom feel lived in?
Yes.
And then your favorite movie poster on Miller's wall, because I'm sure there's so many.
Oh, so many. Thanks to Paramount, but my favorite movie poster for sure on Miller's wall was Chinatown.
Mm.
Absolutely. And I really wanted Election on there too, pretty bigly.
I saw Election and I was
Yeah,
like, oh, so Miller is a cultured film boy.
absolutely. Yeah. Everyone's like, oh, a cinephile would have, other. And I'm like, listen, this kid he has taste.
He
He has
does.
taste. Um, but Miller's bedroom was fun. It was actually on location as well.
Wow.
And it was upstairs. We did again fight with building that on stage too for logistics reasons. But I wanted that bedroom to feel inherited by Miller in a way that it had these layers that had been there from when his dad lived there because he lives with his grandpa now. So you have this blue plaid wallpaper and you have these elements of blue. Miller's color story to me was very blue, like his truck and also his room and some of that, just kind of classic, but not on the nose with it for a teenage boy. And I really wanted it to have this stark contrast to Clara's a bit, where you both see their passions and you both see their individuality that's separate, but, arguably similar. But I wanted Clara's to feel more type A, almost like clearly she's Morgan's daughter. And I wanted Miller's to feel definitely more a creative outlet for him. Like he felt safe in this house, even though it was his dad's old bedroom, in my foresight of that, in the background of something like that. And it's an older house. So I really wanted that for him. And then the teenage bedroom of that, I always thought of my own bedrooms too. And I always think like that. I always think back to like what was on my walls a lot. And with Clara specifically, that set was actually built on stage.
Oh, okay.
So we did build and her bathroom and her bedroom. And I remember specifically having this really great collaborative conversation with our costume designer, Erin. And she was like, I just want to thank you for not making Clara's bedroom hot pink.
Yes.
Like you were saying, like Pottery Barn pickup drop.
Yep.
And I said, thank you. Well, obviously it wouldn't make any sense within the Grant house in general, but I wanted this house and I wanted her bedroom to be obviously an extension of that house, even obviously, of course it was built, but I wanted those wood tones to play as if she's just walked into a space because I moved a lot growing up, especially in high school. I walked into spaces from the 70s that I lived in for a handful of months with my parents, and I was like, okay, here we go. And so I made the room as if she made it her own fully, where we have this Murphy bed look that has been flipped out, and we have these existing shelves and things like that she's filled with her books and she's put all of her playbills and the things she's interested in there, where it still has this grounded sense of the 70s. You still get that feeling of like, okay, this house has been lived in, this is cozy, but it's Clara. And it really, having that neutral palette of mid-century, which you always do, which is fantastic, it gave us so much freedom to play with Clara's individuality there, with like her bright comforters and her nice mustard colors, and we had these teals and these blues in there. So her taste is very eclectic in a way. And I wanted that to come across with the dressing, which my set decorator, Nicholas Urbano, just nailed it. And the team, he has these wonderful women on his team named Haley and Kat, and they just do these life layers, we call them. And they came in, I told them exactly who Clara was. I played a song from Josh's playlist that he always puts together for us. And I said, this is who she is. Here's my mood board. They put all the layers into that set just excellently, from pins on the drapes and all these stars everywhere. And then I had fun. I would go down there sometimes and just put stickers on the wall, like places where like a little kid would just put stickers when they got a whole stack of stickers because she'd lived there her whole life. So just these remnants of young Clara just kind of around that room too. So it was really intentional.
Yeah. There was some, I'm not going to remember it now, but there was some Playboy or play, not Playboy, Playbill that I saw that I was like, oh, that is a wild choice for Clara. I don't remember what it was now, but there was one that I was like, oh, that's
Was it
crazy.
Avenue Q? Like
I think maybe, or is there a Spring Awakening one? Am I remembering?
there's a Spring Awakening one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
It's like,
Yeah.
Clara, your mom
I
would
thought it
not
was
approve of
like
that.
I Morgan didn't know what it was. I can guarantee it. When I picked it too from a pile, I was like, this one.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the way that all kids can get a little dangerous.
Oh, 100%. Yes, 100%.
Well, thank you so much, Brittany. This was great. The film, I was surprised at how much I had like such a blast with it. I found myself crying. I really had fun.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. It's for the audience, you know.
Yeah.
The film is made for people. It's for us. So,
Yeah. Yeah, you can really feel it. I think that's what really sells the film.
oh, great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
You're
Tina.
welcome.
Fun.
Yeah. You have a great rest of your day, okay?
Thanks, you too.
Bye.
Bye.